Hi, I'm Mike Olson, and in this UPS short take, I'll be working with the Alpha RBMS Remote Battery Monitoring System, and we're going to go over the final configuration settings that are done in the web browser. So I've got my IP address plugged into my web browser, and it's pulled up, but I'm not logged in, so I need to do that before I can make any changes. So click the login button, click the text box, and type in admin, all lowercase, and hit enter. Now we are logged in and can make some changes. In the center section, we can see our batteries, our 4 batteries, their current voltage, their current admittance value, and their current temperature. Also, I can see the overall string voltage and delta V. That's the difference between the lowest voltage battery and the highest voltage battery. I can see my string name. Over here under site data, that's all about the controller. So we've got our site name, temperature, controller's ready, and it's balancing the batteries. All right, so let's focus on the batteries to start. So I'm going to click on battery 2, and it brings up this window. You can drag these windows around by clicking the header, and now I can move it. One of the things I encourage you to do is to change the name of the battery. It says string 1 jar 2, which really isn't useful because we already know that. So let's give it a useful name. And for instance, let's look at battery 1. Battery 1, I've already changed the name. I put in the model number of the battery, the date it was installed, the original Siemens value of that battery, and then BAT1, which is very helpful when you're looking at your string remotely and you're trying to remember, hey, what size battery do I have out there? What model is it? When did we install it? You've got all that information right here, or else you've got to find a spreadsheet somewhere where you've captured that information. Save yourself the time and the trouble, put it right into the name. So type that in, hit update battery settings, then go to your next battery, do the same thing, change it, update battery settings, go through each of those, and then you've got all 4 batteries set, okay? You may want to change the string name, that's here as well. You can just click anywhere in this rectangle box, and then you can change that string name instead of being just string 1. I made mine more useful by typing in first and main, that's the location of this RBMS, also the model number of the battery, the baseline value used for that battery after I averaged them all out, and then the date that string was installed. This is helpful information as well, especially if you're using our Lookout software, because then you can capture that data and bring it back remotely. Okay. So now we've got this section set up. Now let's go over here to the site data. So I click anywhere in this rectangle, and it brings up another window. So now we can change the name and location if we want to, however that works for you. Go ahead and get those values in so you know where this RBMS is. Then admittance interval hours, that's how often it's going to take a reading off of your batteries. Once a day is plenty, so we typically leave that at 24. And then firmware version, if you need to know what it's currently at, and the web interface version, those are right here. Okay, so once you make changes here, be sure to click update details. That pushes it out to the unit. Next are the alarms. What alarms do you want for notification back so that you know when you've got a battery that's falling out of spec, okay? And there's a lot of settings that you could choose. For the most part, I pick the second one down, battery admittance change percent. That's really the state of health of your battery. So click that, okay? And typically what you're gonna find is that you'll have all 4 of these checked by default, okay? So what I encourage you to do is to uncheck the top 2 because we don't care if it's higher than what we're going to set our baseline at, which is this value here. This is the number that each battery is going to be compared to as you monitor its performance over time. To get the baseline number, what you're going to do is look at your 4 batteries at the admittance value, add them together and divide by 4 to get the average. That then becomes your baseline admittance. Do that when the batteries are first installed, and then we encourage you to do that 6 months later because they settle out with each other and that value may change. So go ahead and reset then the baseline at that point, but for sure get it when the batteries are new. Okay, mine's coming in at a low value because I'm using little 5 amp hour batteries, not the larger battery that you'd actually be using in the field. Okay, next then are these settings down here. These are the ones we care about the most, the low and the low. What is below that baseline threshold? When do I want that notification? And by default, it comes in at minus 20% and minus 40%. Thought a long time about this and got asked by a lot of customers, hey Mike, what value should we set that at? And till I got some time to play with the unit. I said, well, I'll just leave it like it is. But after much thinking, I would change those. I would change the low one to -40 and low to -50. Here's my thinking on that. You're looking for an early notification, but not extremely early notification of the batteries. And we know that when a battery has lost approximately 40% of its admittance value, the battery has about 80% of its original capacity left. So if we had a 100 amp hour battery, that battery is now effectively an 80 amp hour battery in the string. And if it happens to be the weakest one, that means the string is effectively an 80 amp hour string. That's still a lot of capacity left in that string. So that's probably not a crisis. You're probably getting lots and lots of runtime, so it will not be an issue for you, okay? So at 40%, it's really just a notification, okay? So to tell you, hey, I'm aging, keep an eye on me, and maybe a few years down the road, you might need to make a change then. So just kind of the first marker, okay? But if all of the other batteries are nowhere near that, that's another indication. I'll talk about that in a minute. Next one, -50. That's really the trigger point. That's the point at when you say, okay, the battery's hit -50% loss. That means it's suspect of being somewhere around 70% or less of its original capacity. It's time to replace that battery. We recommend replacement when you've lost 50 to 60% of your original admittance or conductance value of that battery. So that's the replacement trigger point. So what do these values mean? Well, after you've got all that set up, look at these values and they'll come in, and these will change as you get alarm values. And it's really about relationships. How do they look as they are together, right? If they're all running in about the same, and you've got a battery that's hit -40 before the others, and maybe the rest are at 35, 38, 37, they're just aging, nothing's wrong. But if you got one at -40 and all the rest are like this, -4%, 2%, 5%, even 10%, if that battery started at about the same point, that battery's failing prematurely, okay? So that's what you're looking for. Are they grouped in the same and all about the same value? Or do you have an outlier that's failing way early and coming in with those higher numbers? That's how you know whether the string is just aging or you've got a failed battery. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out my other short takes videos.